Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Comfort Zone series. Today, we are going to dive a little bit deeper into this mysterious wormhole we have discovered that coincides with how deep the comfort zone is, right? So, I kind of want to outline what we are going to be talking about today, just so you kind of know what to expect. But as always, I would highly recommend taking out a notebook or maybe just listening to this and then later taking some notes. But I think this episode is very important, and that's why I wanted to make this episode 3 into 2 different parts. So welcome to part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, I really recommend you checking that out, as well as the other episodes prior to this. But hey, if not, that's okay. We can start here. Anywhere is a great place to start. So, as with the previous video, and I think all of my videos, I need to start doing this. I just wanted to give a little disclaimer. We're going to be talking about emotional topics, maybe some triggering topics. We might have some memories reoccur to us that we forgot about or repressed or thought we were okay from, but in reality, we weren't. So, just that little disclaimer. And with that being said, today we're going to be covering substance abuse disorders in the household. I want to cover what that is and briefly describe some of the characteristics of which are likely to be present in the family or household before we dive a little bit deeper into how that may affect an individual or child negatively and personally, independently into their adulthood, and how being a byproduct of substance abuse can negatively affect how a child, teenager, or adult copes and develops through life. Then I want to end with a little optional homework, more so just, I think we should find a new name for homework. I don't know, mellow work, something, I don't know, help me out. But I have a couple little exercises, also a question for us at the end to think about. So, with that being said, let's kind of just dive right into it. And also, let me know if you enjoy these styles, where I'm doing my makeup and also talking to you guys. I miss doing both, and sometimes it's hard for me to do both at the same time, so I found doing this kind of little voice recording on top of something I did before to be a lot more easy on my brain. So, yeah, let me know. And thank you guys so much for always being here. All right, let's get right into the juicy stuff. So, first things first, we need to understand that every single family, household, living situation is so different and complex, okay? So when it comes to substance abuse, which is, I want to define that real quickly, the reoccurring use of alcohol or drugs or both in the household. So, with every family, household, and living situation being so different, that substance abuse effect may differ according to the different structures that's going on, right? But the effects that this substance has on the family can continue for generations. I know some of us have heard before that alcoholism or addiction can be genetic and it can run in the family. And I heard that growing up, but after doing this research and learning about the comfort zone and all of this stuff, you guys, it's really starting to tie together. So, yes, I want to show and talk about how much of a negative effect this has on role modeling, on trust, and concepts of normal behavior. Okay? So, whoa. Where do we start? So, going on to our little list, I wanted to discuss Dr. Riley's list of commonalities he made, and it describes several characteristic patterns which are likely to be present in a family that includes parents or children who are abusing alcohol or illicit drugs. So, as I said, I just want to cover how it can impact a family or the characteristics that can be found inside of a household before we get into the depths of what it does to an individual and how it affects them and their mental state outside of just the family structure that's going on. So, a really short and brief list that we can go over. You can jot this down if you would like, or just take a listen and see if you resonate with any of these, or if you find anything in common with some of the stuff that's being described if substance abuse is present in the household. So there may be a lot of negativity. Any communication that occurs among the family members is negative, or it's taking form of complaints, there's criticism. The overall mood of the household is just downbeat. There might be a lot of parental inconsistencies. Children are confused because they cannot figure out what the boundaries of right and wrong are, so as a result, they may behave badly in the hope of getting their parent to set clearly defined boundaries. And remember in our last video where we talked about the inability for children to develop a proper sense of self, and that is where distorted beliefs can negatively impact a child and create self-love deficiency disorder. So the same thing can happen in here. These inconsistencies tend to be present regardless of whether the person abusing substances is the parent or the child, but I want to make sure that we understand the key factor in all of this is always the children. That is what is so important. So moving on to the next commonality, there might be a lot of parental denial. So they might not feel like they have a drinking problem or a drug problem, right? There might be a miscarried expression of anger. So they might resent their emotionally deprived home and are afraid to express their outrage. They don't want to talk about how much it is impacting them. There might be self-medication. Either a parent or child will use drugs or alcohol to cope with these thoughts and feelings such as anxiety or depression. And see how much this kind of coincides with the addiction process of our last video, where substance abuse and that addiction to the feeling of having no more anxiety is what starts becoming an issue. So now that we kind of covered a short little list of commonalities that may be found within the family or structure, I want to dive deeper into the individual effects that has on people. And with that, I was introduced to something very interesting. As I mentioned in the last part of this series, I came across a video that I'm going to link below of Dr. Rosenberg actually talking about how being an adult child of an alcoholic or of substance abuse is completely different than having self-love deficiency disorder. Now, you can be an adult children of an alcoholic or a substance abuser and have self-love deficiency disorder, or you can have self-love deficiency but have nothing to do with being an adult child of an alcoholic. So that is why I wanted to split this into two parts, is because it's so important to understand that there can be even deeper layers of the onion to peel back that we may not have even thought about. So with me personally discovering the concept of having self-love deficiency and that resulting in codependency, and then me learning about how being an adult child of an alcoholic and substance abuser resulted in me having self-deficiency disorder and having codependency issues, it made me kind of realize that maybe some of my patterns aren't from a bad year I had 2 years ago, or maybe my codependency tendencies aren't from, a strange relationship or something I simply experienced when I was one age, or, along those lines. Maybe it was the process of growing up in a household where alcoholism and substance abuse was present, and not understanding how much an effect that had was kind of like, whoa, being light bulb went off. So that's why I want to share this so much with you. So this is where we go into these two lists that I would like to explain. And this can get a little confusing, so I wanted to type up a little template for you guys in case you wanted to. I know some of us might not have a laptop, or a printer, but maybe we can jot these down yourself, but seeing it written down might be a little bit more helpful than just me speaking out loud. So I'm going to attach that down below for you guys, just in case it's a little challenging. So if you want to click on that link right now, go ahead and try that out. I've never done this stuff before, so let's just see how this goes. But On the ACA website, which is Adult Children of Alcoholics, they give 2 amazing lists that they refer to as laundry lists. And on the amazing side is that they have a flip to this list to where they talk about all the negative effects, like we just kind of talked about the negative commonalities that are in a household, in the structure of the home. Now we're going to talk about the negative effects it has on the individual, but we're also going to talk about the flip side on how to change the negative list to positive to help eliminate this cycle, if that makes sense. Because like we talked about, this is something that has a huge effect on generations upon generations upon generations. So if we can stop this negative cycle now and kind of understand that just being told, hey, addiction runs in the family, it's deeper than that. It's way deeper than that. It's the result that certain individuals had because of addiction in the family that is now negatively affecting the role modeling, the trust, the concepts of what is normal. So I just want to talk about some laundry lists, okay? So I didn't write down every single thing that is on the laundry list, simply because I didn't want this video to become too long. But as there were a bunch of common characteristics with the family or the household and what goes on in there, Adult Children of Alcoholics, this website, has done a whole bunch of literature work and research to find a whole bunch of common characteristics between certain individuals that may be a byproduct of substance abuse. So with that being said, I want to talk about the first little laundry list that we have. And as I mentioned, I did add them to a small little slide if you guys would like to see. And I also will link the website so you can see the list for yourself and the in-depth list. Adult children of alcoholics may become approval seekers and lose their identity along the way. They might become frightened by angry people or personal criticism. As a result, of their childhood and what they had experienced, or just the way that they were raised, they may become alcoholics themselves. They may find themselves marrying one or find themselves always with somebody who is a compulsive person. They have a very compulsive personality. Adult children of alcoholics might become attracted to the victim viewpoint in their love lives or even just their friendships, say their position at work. It just takes over every aspect of their lives. They might feel guilty for sticking up for themselves. They become addicted to excitement. There is a common characteristic that they may confuse love with pity. So, for example, they might love people that they believe that they can rescue. They might have a lot of denial. They might become completely dependent, which is why I wanted to put codependency and self-love deficiency in the first part, so then we can understand how this can also be a symptom of adult children of alcoholics. So with that little list right there, I wanted to go to the other laundry list. This is where adult children of alcoholics, in order to cover fear or dread of isolation, they might find themselves becoming the very authoritative figure that frightened them in the first place. And then they might cause others to start drawing away. ACAs might become too self-sufficient to where they disdain the approval of others, and to avoid losing themselves in others, they become very isolated or disassociative. Another characteristic is irresponsibility or becoming very self-centered. And it stops us from feeling negative. Another characteristic is inhibiting fear by staying numb or deadened. They might hate people who play the victim role or beg to be rescued. So as opposed to the first laundry list, where somebody may become very attractive to somebody who is very pity or wants to be saved. They feel like they need to save people. On the flip side, being a child of an alcoholic or a substance abuser, they may become very, very despising of that type of characteristic in a person. They don't want to be around somebody who wants to be a victim or be rescued. The next characteristic is denial that they have ever been hurt. So they're suppressing a whole bunch of emotions. They may find themselves projecting hate towards others, and they act as if they're nothing like the dependent people who raised us. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about the first laundry list and then the second laundry list, because it's almost like, it's like a coin. There's two sides to it. You might become approval seekers, or you might become somebody who is so distraught that you don't even care about the approval of others. It's so complex that it's way deeper than just saying, hey, I have self-love deficiency disorder. Hey, my mother, father, or brother, or sister, or aunt, or uncle was a consistent alcoholic or drug abuser, and that's just why I am the way I am. And not taking into consideration that sentence isn't covering how deep this goes. This list of these characteristics, it's almost kind of like, oh my goodness. With me personally, I could resonate with almost list 1 and list 2. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, and that was all a result of the way I was raised and the structure of the household. Like I said, it wasn't some weird person I met and had a relationship with and then I lost my sense of self. No, it was my never gaining a sense of self, or becoming addicted to a victim standpoint that I don't really see reality for the way it is. You feel what I mean? But one idea that I have before I jump into the flip side of the laundry list of how we can take these characteristics, flip them, and change them into a way that can better benefit us and help us evolve, as opposed to staying in that maybe victim mentality or that denial state or that angry state of not wanting to even take time to see how much of an impact substance abuse may have on you or a friend or the one you are in a relationship with. And then maybe you can see, hey, they're not like, how some people always think it's the last relationship or it's just one thing that happened in their life. Maybe it was how their household was when they were a child. The relationship that they shared wasn't normal. Their concept of normal isn't normal, But one question I have is, I wonder if each laundry list attracts each other, I wonder if the person who finds themselves on the first laundry list, somebody who may be addicted to the victim standpoint, addicted to the excitement, becoming approval seekers or frightened by people, they become attracted to the people who are on the opposite side of the list. They're attracted to somebody who isn't in fear of authority. They're attracted to somebody who doesn't want somebody playing the victim. You know what I mean? Or say somebody finds themselves on the flip side where they frighten other with with their anger, or they're irresponsible and self-centered, but really deep down they are wanting somebody who will save them. They're wanting somebody who does have a compulsive personality that they don't find themselves having. Do you kind of get what I'm saying? And I'm hoping if you have or were able to write down some of those characteristics on each laundry list or on the little template that I typed out, you can put those side by side and kind of see like, hey, I find myself leaning towards people who act like this and they are on the other laundry list. Or maybe you find somebody that is on the same laundry list as you that you are attracted to, whether that be a friendship or a relationship or anything, your job. See how that might affect us. And maybe we're attracted to the people on the other side. I don't know. That was just a weird little question that popped into my head and I wrote down in my notes. And I was just like, So I wanted to talk about the flip side to those laundry lists and how we can create a new checklist of characteristics that will help us move outside of our comfort zone, that may help us move outside of any of the characteristics we have listed on the other laundry lists. And like I said, help our mind, spirit, and energy grow through educating ourselves. And it might take educating ourselves on very traumatic things that happened to us or understanding that, damn, I had a very weird childhood and that's why I find myself developing in such a strange way outside of how other people are developing. And right before I go on to this little checklist, it was also very interesting because out of all the literature I read and all of the doctors' just advice and stuff at the end of their work, they talked about how important it is to take into consideration substance abuse or alcoholism in the household when going to therapy or when addressing problems that are coming up in a relationship or in the work field or in even school. It's very important to not overlook what is happening in the household, what has happened in the household, because that's what's so important. So just maybe if you find yourself having a lot of trouble in your relationships, in your work field, maybe the therapy that you have been going to just isn't working, maybe ask yourself if a therapist has ever taken substance abuse or alcoholism, which, is substance abuse, into consideration and asked you about that, or how, if you've experienced any of that yourself. Maybe your parents didn't, or somebody in the household didn't, but you find yourself addicted to a substance. It might just be an interesting thing to ask yourself. Is my self-love deficiency or codependency or development habits a byproduct of substance abuse? Let's move on to the positive aspect of why I wanted to talk about this. Because there is, like I said, a flip side to those laundry lists. So when it comes to the first list that we talked about, laundry list number 1, in order to move out of our isolated comfort zone, we need to stop being unrealistically afraid of other people and authority. To do the very best to stop depending on others for telling us how whole we are, what our worth is, who we are, right? It's understanding that everything isn't taken as a threat. It doesn't have to be taken as a threat. And what's so funny is I remember one thing that always stuck with me that my dad would tell me when I would get really, really upset is he would look at me and just say, if you take everything everybody says personally, you're going to have a miserable life. And I'm telling you guys, everything does not need to be taken as a threat. We need to lift that weight off of our shoulders, right? Because if we work towards undoing that victim mentality and we let go of that guilt when standing up for ourselves, we can start learning to avoid emotional intoxication, right? We will know that it's working relationships that we will only accept. And I love how we're talking about this now, when in comparison to last episode, we are talking about once you start allowing that peace and that sense of self and self-love, and you start emitting that self-love, and then you start expecting the reciprocity of that self-love, then you only allow certain people in your life because you will only accept certain things into your life. That's how the same thing will go here. If we avoid emotional intoxication, we will only allow what works. And that will slowly teach us that rescuing people we pity, it's not an act of love. It's just not. We need to discover a new sense of self-worth and grow independence so we are no longer terrified of abandonment. That one is so important, you guys. Think about it. Grow in independence so we are no longer terrified of abandonment. If you know you're okay, you guys, then if somebody's all of a sudden wants to just not talk to you anymore or does something really, really bad to you, you knew what it was like to grow in independence, so you're not terrified of being abandoned. You understand that, hey, to each its own. You can move on and have your chin held high. All of these root causes, like we talked about, these characteristics, they're identified. So with the laundry lists, all these characteristics that have commonalities in the household, they can be identified, they can be acknowledged, and remember, cleansed and removed, loved and expressed, right? We can work on becoming actors and not reactors to situations. Wouldn't that be amazing, you guys? To stop reacting and just start acting? We don't have that much time to just spend our actions reacting, right? If we're just sitting there reacting and crying and not doing anything about it, taking action, we're going to feel stuck inside our comfort zone, right? And if you hear anything, you guys, while I'm talking and it sparks something, write that down and do some research by yourself. Don't just wait for me to make a video on something, start educating yourselves, you guys. There's nothing to lose, nothing to lose. And if you don't want to, or maybe you don't have time, leave it in the comments, and I promise I will talk about it. So, with that little checklist that we had going on, that covers the flip side to laundry list number 1. Do you see where it's going? It's helping us move outside of our comfort zone, right? Because if everything isn't taken as a threat, if we understand that rescuing people, which is probably holding us inside of our comfort zone, it isn't working, so we let go of the guilt for sticking up for ourselves. We start growing in independence. Like, you're telling me that that's not just rushing outside of a comfort zone? And I know we talked about this. Life is a cycle. It's an endless cycle. We might step outside one comfort zone just to build a new, bigger one and find ourselves stuck inside of a new comfort zone. And then maybe we need to go through all of the steps again to ask ourselves, all right, I need to work on not feeling so isolated. I must be feeling guilty for staying where I am if I feel too deep and stuck inside of a comfort zone. So seeing the negative side effects of growing up with substance abuse in the household and the characteristics it can wild up in us. Seeing that there's a flip side and seeing that, hey, if I actually do take these steps, my comfort zone is just going to absolutely pop. It's like a double whammy. So real quick before we end this amazing little snippet, I'm going to cover the other checklist really, really quickly. We can step outside of the comfort zone so intimidation with power and position is no longer a thing. We can realize that the sanctuary we've built ourselves in to protect from the frightened and injured child that we became, it's become a prison. We need to become willing to move out of isolation at our own risk. And that takes acceptance and comforting the sad and hurt child that we may have abandoned. We support and encourage others in their efforts to be assertive, as opposed to shutting people down when they want to stick up for themselves. You might uncover childhood fears, and this is where the timeline comes into so much play because we've almost started doing this already. Remember? You can acknowledge that there was a lot of dysfunction and that denial is no longer necessary. We can understand that we're still unconsciously reacting to childhood injury. So with that being said, you guys, I want us to do our best to stop denying and to do something about our post-traumatic dependency on substance abuse, on people, on places, on things, to distort and avoid the reality that's happening. I want us to also understand that moving away from somebody or moving out of substance abuse is not going to fix everything. It's going to take seeing the laundry lists, seeing if we've had any commonalities or characteristics. It's accepting and acknowledging reality comes with understanding the impact your parents or substance abuse has had on you and the decisions that you continue to make. Okay? Before a little homework time, I also want you guys to understand that there are so many online groups, in-person therapy groups that help cover substance abuse, that help cover codependency issues, that this doesn't have to stop at the end of this video, and it doesn't have to just start with the stresses of researching this yourself. There's a lot of therapy groups and online places that can help understand what's going on. And I want all of us to strive for self-efficiency. I want us to be open to the experiences and understand that we cannot change the past, we cannot change our childhood, but we can seek change for ourselves, no matter what age we are. I want us to stop this generational cycle, you guys. I really do. So what I would like for us to do for homework, if you would like to, is I want you to make a list of ways to reduce isolation for yourself. Okay? You could do that as one. I have 2 choices, okay? Actually, I have 3. I have 3 mini homework assignments if you would like to. So the first one, you can print or copy out the little checklist that I'm going to link in the description box. And I want you to check off what you connect with. Because like with making the timelines, I think if we actually check off and see what's really going on and what we connect with when it comes to being in a household with substance abuse or a child of substance abuse, I think it can open our eyes to where we need to better tend to ourselves. You could do that, or you can make a list of ways to reduce isolation. Or you can write down, what advice would you give your child self? So you can do 1, you can do 2, or you can do 3. But I would really like you guys to pick at least one of those things. Or heck, even maybe just send me in a picture of your notes to prove that you did a little something. I just want to make sure that our wheels are turning and that information isn't just going in one ear and out the other. Because I know some of us might be trying to pay attention or trying to listen, but we're humans. We have a whole bunch going on in our heads, and trying to put everything on pause and sit and listen and engulf everything concisely and coherently, it might be a little bit hard. So that's why I find writing things down, and these little homework assignments are not even homework assignments. Like I said, let's pick out a new name for them, but I think it's helping us get a little bit deeper, and maybe we'll realize that this wormhole isn't just an endless realm, that there's light on the end. So please pick out what little mellow assignments you want to do, and if you happen to do them, send them in. We'll give it like a week or something, or maybe not that long. Time keeps on slipping into this wormhole. All right, I'm just joking. All right. So thank you for listening to part 2 of episode 3. And as with last episode, I would like to just give a little heads up for what part 4 is going to be about. I want to talk about living in a household with chronically ill parents or people. Just having chronic illness in the household and how that can affect us and contribute to even more issues with us stepping outside of our comfort zone, because maybe the last 3 episodes or the last couple episodes hasn't really poked at us yet, but maybe some of us can resonate with having a chronic illness or coping with that, or how having that may make it hard to cope or understand reality or what's happening. I would really like to talk about that. So please look forward to that. Please let me know what you thought about this episode. The makeup is it's something new, all right? But I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's talk to you later. Bye. It was like a phone call ending. Talk to you later. Bye. All right, guys. Bye.